Good afternoon on the East Coast. Good morning still if you're in the Central Time Zone or the West Coast. This is the Business of Sales Live webinar series every Thursday on LinkedIn at noon. So you don't have to register. It's great to register, but you don't have to register. Just hop on LinkedIn every 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you're going to be able to catch me going live talking about various topics within the business of sales. This week is just a solo. Everybody's on vacation. But in the O'Kelly household, we're not. So the show must go on, but I've got some great guests that are going to be lined up for the month of September. You don't want to miss that. So if you're watching right now on LinkedIn, please shoot me a message where you are watching from right now, and just let you know you can ask questions. This is going to be a little bit different. I wanted to have some fun today, okay? So I'm going to shoot a Surviving Outside Sales podcast episode live. So I will show you the process of what I do, what processes I use, what technology I use. You're going to get a peek behind the curtain. And I think this is really important because if you'd asked me 2 years ago when I started the Surviving Outside Sales podcast, what I used then as opposed to now, back then it was much more of a production. Now with technology, I'm leveraging that technology to make things a lot smoother, a lot easier, and more time efficient. I will break down the podcast. I'll break down the how I do it, all my processes and systems might be able to help you. I will be coming out with a little mini course about building a podcast in the sales world. And I think every single person in the sales world should do it. I believe it'll help you become better at communicating your ideas. You'll be able to meet your prospects where they are. You're going to network and meet a lot of great people that are going to open doors. So that'll be about 15, 20 minutes. I want to talk about the topics. These are the topics of today: entrepreneurship, business building, starting after a loss, going all in. And then the podcast episode is going to be about getting in, dominating, and getting out. The three pillars, the three legs of surviving outside sales. So I know there's a bunch of people that are watching right now. Just shoot in the comments, if you can, where you are. I just like to see where people are tuning in from across the world, actually across the United States. I haven't had anybody in any other countries yet, but that'd be great. So kicking it right off. One of the things, if you're first time watching, you haven't been here before, this is the business of sales. There are two different avenues or two different sections of sales. One is the business of sales, and one is what I call sales as a business. Sales as a business is the closing aspect. It's getting the deals done. It's having people sign on the line that is dotted. That's the fun part, okay? But there is an entire process. There's an entire story, a back end that you need to be able to master in order to get to the closing. If you just try to force everything into the closing window, or you try to close too quickly, it's not going to work. So you have to really understand the business of sales, and that's kind of the back end of the business, how you build your systems, how you build your processes. And it's really when you consider, if you're running a business, you understand the business of sales. If the business is running you, you don't. So I'm going to talk about entrepreneurship, business building, starting after loss, and going all in. All right. So, oh, wow. We have somebody from India. That is awesome. Vishal, I hope I'm saying that name correctly. Vishal, what time is it in India right now? I'm not very good with timing. But thank you from India, also from Charlotte, North Carolina. Welcome. I love when my Charlotte peeps tune in. So I'll have people keep commenting and adding that. So I'll just keep going. It doesn't matter what type of sales you're in. Okay. It doesn't matter what type of sales you're in. You are running your own business. All right. You are running your own business within a territory, and you need to understand everything about that. And that's what the business of sales talks about. You really are an entrepreneur. And I know that term gets used and thrown around very frequently and very haphazardly. Just anybody who's a hustler is an entrepreneur. No, an entrepreneur is somebody who's willing to take risks, who's willing to take action, and really is going after doing something bigger than themselves. That's really an entrepreneur. It's having that spirit of building something. That's an entrepreneur. It's building something bigger than themselves. And having that lens, you can go out and you can do your job. If you're a W-2 employee, that's great. You can still treat that like it's your own business. You can still treat that like it's your own territory. And it's very important that you do that. You take ownership of it, because your prospects, your buyers, anybody you interact with on a daily basis is going to, they are going to feed off of that energy. They're going to feed off that presence. If you treat this like a job, people are going to pick up on that. If you're just clocking in and clocking out, people will pick up on that. You have to go the extra mile, and in your mind, you're the owner. You're running that business. I liken it to running a franchise within a bigger company. You're responsible for everything that happens in your territory. That means you also need to understand the back end of the business, not just the front end, but the back end. How decisions are made, how you can create long-term success. And business building really is like building a house. And the first thing you have to do is you have to come up with your plans, and you have to come up with your blueprints. It's one of the reasons why in the Sales Builder Academy, I call it the Sales Builder Blueprint. You have to create your fundamentals and your plan, or you're just swimming in chaos. If you're just waking up every morning and you're going out in the field and you're just making calls and you don't know why, you're just doing it. It's just activity. My company said to do it, so that's why I'm doing it. That's not long-term. That's not sustainable in the long term. You're not going to be able to achieve what you want to achieve by doing that. You have to create, and you have to start thinking of it. Okay, I need to build. So if you're building a house, what the first thing you're going to do is you're going to draw plans. Then you're going to create the foundation. The foundation is what everything is built on top of. If your foundation is not strong, your business is going to. Same thing in territory sales. If you haven't built up that base, it's going to crumble. And then you start building out the framework. And then you start put on the roof. You start putting on the drywall, electrical. Then you start putting in the finishes, the appliances. All that stuff happens last. And so there is a methodical way to go about your business. And it doesn't matter what you're selling. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You have to be methodical in your preparation and methodical in your plans. That's the only way to do that. And I'm going to touch more on this once we go live into the podcast. So starting after a loss. Okay. I have some good news and I have some bad news for you. The good news is nothing is going to end you. If you are in sales, you could blow a deal, and yeah, maybe you might lose a job, whatever. It's not going to take your life. Okay. So when it comes down to it, this is not life or death. Sales is not life or death. And I know some people might say, well, if I don't make money, I can't afford to live. I completely understand that. But if you close a deal, it's not like they're going to say, well, we're going to have to end you. Okay. So in the long-term scheme of things, this is not life or death. Okay. Your health, your mindset, your relationships with your family and friends are much more important. Okay. So if you have a loss, and I wrote about it today on LinkedIn, you can go back, check my posts. I have failed hundreds of times. I've failed hundreds of times, and I put myself out there to fail. If you've been following the Business of Sales Live, the first couple of weeks, I had issues getting my guests on properly. There's a lot of moving parts behind the scenes. That's okay. I'm not trying to be perfect, and neither should you. The goal is not perfection. The goal is to consistently show up every single day and get better. And you're going to move closer and closer and closer to being perfect, but you will never be perfect. I will never be perfect. I don't hold myself to that standard. It's impossible to be perfect. So you're going to fail. Understanding that when you fail, you just need to understand how to get back up. It's that simple. Does that mean it's easy? No, it doesn't. But that comes with the mentality and a mindset that you're, again, going back to being an entrepreneur. It's something bigger than yourself. It's not just you. It's something bigger than yourself. The people that you can impact, that you sell to, your product, service, whatever it is, in your little geographic part of the world, you have a chance to directly influence their lives as well. So if you get knocked down, think about the people you can affect and you can change for good. I do that, and it always helps me get back up. I also don't care if I fail, and I don't care what people think about what I do or what I say. There could be people watching right now that I'm not aware of, and they could be, complete haters. Who cares? Honestly, how many people are going live at noon on LinkedIn about sales using their free time to try to engage with the LinkedIn audience? How many? A handful? Why is that? It didn't cost me anything. It's free. Why aren't people doing it? It's the same thing when you talk about your marketing efforts, your relationship efforts, your networking efforts. Why are people not doing more? Yet they're the ones that will start to be the naysayers. So realize you're going to fail. How you respond to that failure is going to dictate your level of success. I know I'm going to fail, so the expectation is at least I tried. People that have never failed, and people say I've always been successful, they have never pushed themselves out of their comfort zone. That's the only time you fail. There's a lot of things that I've pushed myself. If you'd asked me a couple years ago if I would be doing what I'm doing today, I'd probably say you're crazy. First of all, I didn't know a whole lot about these platforms. I didn't know hardly anything about the platforms until the pandemic hit. I didn't even know what Zoom was. Never heard of Zoom. Now I'm using StreamYard. And a couple weeks ago, had a great guest. We had like 40 some people were watching. Imagine how hard it is. Even right now, there's 7 people right now. I did hardly any promotion of this because my week was so crazy. I literally have been burning the candle at both ends this week. I didn't even know if I was going to be able to go live with a promotion or anything. I was like, I might just have to go live. That's okay. It doesn't matter. The thing today about it was I just wanted to show up. That's all you have to do. That's half the battle, is just show up. Just keep showing up, keep showing up, keep showing up. Don't ever let anything knock you down and keep you down. Because in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal. And then you got to go all in. I'm telling you right now, I know some of you might be watching, and here's the best part about this. I'm recording this. This is going live. This is going to live on my LinkedIn page. Somebody is going to see this 4, 5, 6, 7 days from now. So I am now speaking one-to-many. I'm not doing a one-to-one conversation. So somebody could be affected by this, but just doesn't have time today at noon. You have to go all in. You have to find something that you are passionate about and not dip your toe in the water. You got to jump in both feet, cannonball style. Go all in. Forget about what anybody is going to say. Forget about if you're going to be 100% successful or not. Just start. Take chances. Go after it. This whole thing, entrepreneurship, business building, starting after a loss, going all in, it's really a mindset. Are you going to be an action taker, or are you going to be a follower? There are a lot of people that I interact with or I don't interact with on LinkedIn who will DM me and tell me, I love your posts on LinkedIn. It always leaves me curious. Well, why aren't you interacting then? Why aren't you posting? Why aren't you putting content out? Why aren't you sharing with the world your technical competence? It's free. It's literally free. And a lot of things that hold people back is, well, I don't know what to say. If you don't know what to say, what are you doing in your daily sales job? You have to have some level of expertise, or the company you're working for wouldn't hire you. So Vishal, 9:30 p.m. Wow. Thank you for staying up late. That is way past my bedtime. I'm an early to bed, early to rise type of guy now that I've got 2 kids. So thank you for hanging out with me. And William, what's going on? Francesca, welcome. If you are just joining, shoot a message. Where are you in the world? I got my first person from India. This is fantastic. First international person. Well, at least first international person that was live that let me know. So let me know if you have any other questions. I am going to now transition over to the Surviving Outside Sales podcast, and I'm going to talk about that as well. So shoot questions right here while I just kind of give about a minute or so about the podcasting. So if you have thought to yourself, I want to do podcasting, I want to build a brand or anything like that, the thing I'm going to tell you is go for it. Okay. Go for it. Because my coaching business, my consulting business, about 95% of the leads have come from my podcast, hearing about the podcast, a post on LinkedIn about my podcast. That is where I get most of my students from, most of the people that want to work with me, my clients. They hear the podcast, they hear it sometimes for months, and they think to themselves, I really need to work with Mike. Now, not everything is created equal. So just because you have a sales podcast doesn't mean you're going to get business. Don't do things for quid pro quo. Don't say, I'm only going to do a podcast if I get clients. If I did that mentality for the first year, I was struggling to get 1,000 downloads a month. I mean, it was really hard. There were some weeks where I had less than 100 downloads in a week. And then I listened to some advice, keep showing up, show up every day. And I did that. And all of a sudden I had 27x growth in less than a year over year. Keep showing up. Push yourself out of that comfort zone. That's the only way you're going to be as successful as you can be. And to do a podcast, I'm going to be, like I mentioned before, probably in the next month, I'll be launching a mini course on how to start a podcast. This is just going to be my way. It's not going to be extensively exhaustive. I'm just going to tell you how I've done mine, the things that tripped me up, how much I spend over the course of a year, which is very little. But the amount of business, the ROI I have gotten from it, I actually haven't counted the ROI. I need to do that, but I haven't counted the ROI, but the ROI is probably about 50 to 1. I have to double check that, at least 51, maybe 100 to 1 of what I've spent on it versus what the revenue has been. So I highly recommend it. I'll be creating that course. You can DM me if you're interested in knowing more about that course and kind of get a preview of it and be one of the first people to get it once it's available. It's going to be low dollar, $27, $47, something like that. Basically, I'll probably put about 10, 15 hours of work in it, but it's just something that I really want out there in the world because I didn't have that when I first started. Nobody said, hey, do X, Y, Z. I watched hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of YouTube videos. And I tried to, put everything together that kind of fit, but there wasn't a lot of people out there that were doing sales podcasts and they were showing you how to build a sales podcast while you're working a job or you don't have a lot of time. A lot of the big podcasts, they have these big, massive studios where they have multiple guests live in person. Well, I don't have anybody live. All of my guests so far have been virtual because they're all over the world. So you just have to work with what you have. But I highly recommend that you do that. And so right now we're going to get a little bit of a behind the scenes. So basically I use StreamYard. So I'm using StreamYard as my platform to reach out to do this webinars and my podcast. So I'm using StreamYard, and what I do is I basically hit record and I've got my video intro. And then after I'm done, I can then edit if I don't like something, and it's all housed within StreamYard, which is so much simpler. But without further ado, we're going to start one of the first Surviving Outside Sales podcast live. So for the people that have been hanging on, you're going to see history. All right.
The Surviving Outside Sales podcast, hosted by Mike O'Kelly, presented by Sales Builder Academy. The goal is to survive and thrive all phases of outside sales, whether you're getting in, dominating, or getting out. Surviving Outside Sales. Now on with the show.
Welcome to the Surviving Outside Sales podcast live. I'm your host, Mike O'Kelly. Today is the first time I've ever done this, a live podcast episode. Now, I know if you're listening to this later through Spotify or Apple, this can be released in 10 days from when it's actually shot on Thursday, August 24th. I know that you're not going to get as excited as you might be, but this is live. So I can take questions from the audience. So there are people watching right now on LinkedIn live from the Business of Sales webinar series. So people can ask me questions if they have any. And we're going to get started. So if you're new to the Thriving Outside Sales world, if you've listened for a while, you know there's three tenets, there's three legs of the stool that I talk about. And that is every single sales professional, no matter who you are, there's always three phases of your career. The first is going to be getting in. You've got to get that first job. You've got to get that first opportunity in that industry. And you have to start your career somewhere. And as you navigate your way through, you have to dominate. Why? Because sales organizations really do not pay people who don't perform. It's kind of it's the only catch-22 in the sales world. You don't perform, you're out of a job. And then once you dominate and you can learn as much as you can be as good in your craft as possible, every single sales professional has to have a plan to get out. Now, getting out is a lot of things to a lot of people. Getting out could be getting into a new role in management. So you're getting out of the field. You could become a trainer. You could leave the industry together. You could go start a business. You could start a coaching business. You could get into something completely different. So getting out means a lot of things to different people. But no matter who you are, I don't care if you're 25 years old or you're 65 years old. You can't be in the sales business forever unless you own your own business. You can't. At some point, you have to get out. As you age, as my dad said, when he got close to 60 years old, he said, I know that my days are numbered, because there's not a lot of people out there that wish to hire a 60-some-year-old person for a sales role. He told me outside sales is a young person's game. There's a physicality to it where you need to be young. You need to be able to hop in and out of cars. You need to be on your feet all day. And there is a physical nature to it. Trust me, I'm in my mid 40s now, and I started feeling it in my late 30s, having done it for so long. So I get it. So I created and started my getting out plan a decade ago. And it took me 6 to 7 years to start to put the things in motion. But I started working on my plan well before I even got out. And I recommend you do as well, especially with the current market. There are sales organizations that are being gutted left and right. I mean, you name some of the big names, Pfizer, AbbVie, even smaller ones. You know, they're just letting people go. Bristol Myers Squibb, I think, had a big layoff. All these organizations are laying people off. What is your backup plan? I hate when I see the posts on LinkedIn about needing a job and needing an opportunity. In my view, you need to pick yourself up, get off the mat. Like I said, get up from that loss and get going again, and then create your plan. Get back on your feet and then create a plan to never allow that happen again. Happens once, shame on you. Happens twice, shame on me. Okay? So if you're listening right now and you've gone through restructurings and you've gone through reorgs and you've lost your job, the first time it happens, yes, it's unexpected. It's like a knockout punch that comes from out of nowhere. It happens a second time. You should have been prepared. Are you preparing? And what is your plan? I'm going to roll back to the getting in part. So if you're listening right now and you're wanting to get into sales, I have a group coaching course that meets once a month. In fact, we're going to have our first meeting at 1:30 this afternoon and talk about getting in, how to find the right role, get your resume ready, get your LinkedIn profile, etc. If you are interested in that information, DM me after we're done here. If not, you can go to my website. It is Sales Entry Plan. That is mikeokelly.com, mikeokelly.com/sales entry plan. And you can get more information about that. And that is a resource for those looking to get into the sales world, looking to get their first job, looking to get into that industry, and they just don't know what to do and they need more specificity. And once you're getting in, the first thing you have to do is you got to get that role. You got to get that experience. And then I would bust your tail. Do everything you can. Study at night. Read sales books. I'm going to be creating a resource that has the top books that I recommend, that I have read, that have really helped me throughout my career, so that you can kind of have a cheat sheet or a guide on what to do. But start consuming information. Don't just say, I'm going to listen to Mike. Okay. You need to say, I'm going to listen to Mike. And I'm going to go listen to guys like Alex Hormozi, Grant Cardone, Tony Robbins when it comes to mindset. I'm going to go read all of these different books. I mean, one of the best books in sales that I've read is Daniel Pink, To Sell is Human. In other words, everything we do in a day is sales. Point being, I'm going to have a lot more resources on my website. Right now, my bandwidth is very tight. August has been one of the craziest months of my life. I'm hoping September will give me a little bit more time to do creation, which I love to do. I love to create. I love to create courses, pathways, processes, digital products. I love to do that. And so I'm going to have as many resources as possible there. All right. Now getting into the dominate part. Now that you've got the job, you're going to have to scale your business. Okay. And there are ways to do it and there's ways not to do it. A couple of days ago on LinkedIn, I talked about the sniper approach or the sniper method. You don't want to use the shotgun or the spray and pray. You don't just want to start shooting everywhere and blindly and hoping you hit a target. You want to focus on your target with precision. That comes with planning and that comes with education and it comes with expertise. There's a certain way to do that. I also am going to be building out courses specifically to that dominate group. And then, of course, I mentioned before the getting out portion, which is the escape. Okay. I call it the sales escape plan. And I help sales professionals build their plan to get out of sales, to escape what they're doing, or to get into something much better. But all of those three phases in the surviving outside sales world are going to happen to everyone. And it doesn't matter. The first thing is having a growth mindset. It doesn't matter what phase you are in, getting in, dominating, or getting out. You have to have a growth mindset. You have to be a sponge. Assume you know nothing. Treat every conversation you have with somebody in sales as if you believe that person knows everything. Hang on every word. Network like crazy. Meet as many people in the sales world as possible and put yourself out there, open and available to meet other people. One of the mistakes that I had for a few years was I really closed myself off. This was almost to my 30-year-old to like 33. There was about a 3-year period where I really closed people off. I woke up, I worked my tail off. I had blinders on. I had that tunnel vision, and I just worked for about 3 years. And I was successful, but other people were getting promoted. Other people were growing faster than I was, and I didn't understand it. It's because I was not leveraging my network. I was not leveraging any of the resources or opportunities that were open to me because I didn't see them. I wasn't allowing myself to see them. I had a limiting mindset. Although I was working really hard, it was very limiting and it was very closed off. Open yourself up, form partnerships, get to know people, invest in yourself, find a mentor or 2 or 3. I have several mentors. I don't just have one. Again, it's about getting different influences. 2 people could say the exact same thing, and one person, it might sink in the way they said it, the phrasing they use, the tone of voice. So don't just listen to my voice. I'm the complete opposite of a very pushy sales coach. I tell you, hey, I'd love to work with you, but then hire somebody else. Work with more people. Don't just work with one person and think, all right, cool, I'm good for the next 5-10 years. Constantly invest in yourself. You're going to have to elevate your skill set every single year than you did the previous year and the previous year and the previous year. It's never been easier because with technology, we can now reach out to more people than ever before. In fact, one of my sales coaching groups, they're based in South Africa. One of the guys I talked to, he's based in the Philippines. That wasn't even on my radar 3 years ago. That's the kind of opportunity you have to be open for. You have to be willing to invest in. Because in order to dominate, just showing up is not going to be enough. Sales is like being a professional athlete. Professional athletes, they work on their diet, they train in the off season, they get adequate sleep, they work on their nutrition. I might have already mentioned that. They work on their body, they practice, and then they get into the game. The game for us in the sales world is the actual sales calls. What are you doing currently that separates yourself, that elevates your game right now? What are you doing on your own time? Do you get home from work? Do you put on Netflix and you watch TV for 4 hours and you binge? Look, if you need to decompress on 1 or 2 nights, I get it. But if that is your overall mentality, you are really robbing yourself. Trust me. I did this for about 3 years. There's like a gap in my sales career, which I call it the lost years. I would get up early, I would work late, I would get home, I would crash, I would have a couple drinks, I'd watch TV until I was so tired that my eyes just closed. I'd wake up and I would do it again. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. I was working in my business way too hard. I wasn't working on my business. There was no future planning. It was all about short-term effort. If I went out that day and I made 15 sales calls, that's the only effort I got out of it, was those 15 sales calls. I didn't build relationships strong enough with my market. I did not build enough goodwill with the people that I was working with. I didn't build any super close relationships. It was all transactional. And that's not going to get you anywhere. Transactional relationships are great. The deal's done. See you later. Nobody cares. That's not going to get you to where you want to go. You want to build advocates. You want to build advocates, people that are wanting to sell for you. They're vested in your success. There's a way to get there. That is one of the courses that I'm going to be building out. It's the sales advocacy method, and I'm going to call it the sales advocate builder. How to build advocates that will sell for you. Because the goal in sales is not one-to-one, not one person having a conversation with one person. Those days are over. Your competition is not doing one-to-one. It's one-to-many. So if you're out in the field and you are having a conversation with one person, you need to build a network of people that are talking about you to other prospects, simultaneously garnering business when you're not there. Some of the most important decisions of your life, some of the most important interactions you're ever going to have, some of the most important things that people are going to say about you, they happen when you are not in the room. How do you get the best foot forward? You have people in those decision-making rooms that are selling you. Because at the end of the day, people do not buy the best products 90% of the time. 10% of the time, yes. I know I don't. I never buy the best product. I buy the product and I buy the person attached to it that I believe is going to create a better future state than I currently have today. I don't care if you're the industry leader. I don't care if you've been doing it 100 years. I don't care. And I'm here to tell you that when I've gotten coaching students, when I've gotten companies that want to consult with me, they've never asked me, how long have you been doing this? They don't care. They believe that I will help guide them to a better future state, because that's all I talk about. Nobody has ever asked me, how long have you been coaching? How long have you been a corporate consultant? Nobody. Not one. Because it doesn't matter. So if you're walking in and you're talking about, we're number one in the industry and we're blah, blah, nobody gives a shit. Okay. Excuse my language. I know this went over LinkedIn. I'm probably gonna get in trouble for that. I can say that on my podcast, but I don't know if I can on LinkedIn. Oops. Hey, this is what happens when it's live. It's raw and it's real. By the way, one of the things of my podcast is I don't have a script. There's zero script. I have a topic, and then I'm just pulling things from the back of my mind. 2 years ago when my podcast started, that was really difficult. That was really difficult to just create stories or create topics just out of thin air. But I've been doing this. This will be probably in the episode 340s, maybe 350 by the time this comes out. I've been doing this a while. This has allowed me to get better at what I'm doing right here. It's allowing me to get better on camera, which I will tell you is very difficult. But I will tell you this too. One of the reasons, again, going back to building your own podcast or being better as a virtual sales professional, my face-to-face human interactions are strengthened because of how much better I've gotten on camera. When I first started, I was horrendous. And if we're scaling on 1 to 10, I think I'm probably about a 7 right now. I think I can even get better. But I was like a 2, maybe a 1.5 when I first started. In fact, I'm trying to pull up. They're in the cloud and I'm having difficulty downloading them. But my first Zooms when I was doing the podcast were laughable, absolutely laughable. It's very cringeworthy when I look at it. Point being, you got to, again, going back to the beginning, you've got to go all in. You can't half-ass this, okay? If you want to go all in, let's have a conversation. I might be able to help you. I might not, but it's worth a conversation. I'm willing to give you 30 minutes of my time. And if you're willing to give me 30 minutes of your time, let's see if we can put you in a better future state. Because if you're working for a company right now and you haven't gotten any business training, of course they teach features and benefits. But I'll tell you this, just getting better at knowing features and benefits is not going to close business. And you really want to dominate. Seth, I appreciate you being here in Nashville, Tennessee. Hope you're still watching. The 3 phases of sales. Doesn't matter where you are, you can always get better. Whether you want to get in, and once you're in, you need to dominate. You need to come up with a plan to dominate. And then when you're dominating, you need to plan your exit strategy. You can't carry a bag and promote products out in the field forever. It's going to come to some people earlier, and it's going to come to some people later. I played minor league baseball for 2 years. One of my roommates in college, he played in the big leagues for 7 seasons. My baseball career ended at 24. His baseball career ended at, I think, 35. Just like baseball, the sales world, the outside sales world, your end date is going to be completely different from somebody else's. So it's time to take action. What are you going to do today to make sure you are prepared so that if your company ever says, we got to let you all go, are you going to be able to build the life that you want? I want to thank everybody. Thank you so much. This was actually kind of fun to have some live feedback during the podcast. Let me know if anybody has questions. I will take a few questions for a few minutes. There is a little bit of a lag from StreamYard to LinkedIn of about 30 seconds. So I will give it a couple minutes. You can go to mikeokelly.com. I've got resources there. I am building out new things on the website every day, and I'm a one-man solopreneur. So I'm spinning about 15 different plates. If you'd like to go check out, this is a cheap plug. If you'd like to go check out the store, mikeokelly.com/merch, you can see some great products here. Oh, yep, that way. Yep, mugs, beer steins, tumblers. If you're interested in one of those, help support the show, would absolutely appreciate that. All right, no questions right now. So I am going to wrap this up. I want to thank everybody who's listening again. If you got any value out of this, please go to Apple or go to Spotify and rate the show 5 stars. It really helps with the algorithm. It helps expand this to other audiences and it helps the search. There might be somebody out there that's looking for the Surviving Outside Sales podcast. They've been searching for it, but they didn't know how to find it. You could help them do that. And the higher the ratings, the more ratings that there are, the more 5-star ratings, the more it's going to get exposed to other people. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. I hope everybody has a fantastic day. And we'll see you next time. Surviving Outside Sales and the Business of Sales Live every Thursday on LinkedIn at noon Eastern. Cheers.